the extraordinarily warm welcome, the generous introduction. Pastor, I hope to become the man you described. With God's help, I will. I'm a little undone by the program which says that I'm to give a sermon this morning. That is not what I signed up for. If there were to be a sermon this morning, one of these reverend clergy, maybe the pastor would give it, and you get out sometime tonight. I am just here to tell a story or two and offer it as praise for the sacrifice and the service that we have gathered here in Selma to celebrate and to commend. But I am undone. Not just because the program says I'm going to give a sermon, but I was shown a photograph hanging on the wall in the pastor's study just before coming out here, which showed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. standing at this very pulpit. At this very pulpit, talking to folks just like you, just like us, before starting out to march. And then Dr. Cole came and actually gave a sermon. So I'm undone and still happy to be here. Good morning to each and every one of you, brothers and sisters. And thank you for being here. I'm so touched to see so many people from Massachusetts.
Amen.
Yeah. I know part of the reason you're here, just a small part of the reason you're here in Selma, is because there's 9 feet of snow back home. 10 already? Maybe I should take my time. It's great everybody is here, and we are here unified. In a way to acknowledge and reflect upon what unity itself produced 50 years ago. Because it was ordinary men and women, many of them young, who came together and chose to put aside their fear, to lay off their shackles, and to shape their own future. We have lionized them in books and movies, as well we should. By the way, anybody who has not seen Ava DuVernay's remarkable film, Selma, should rush out to do so. And we should all thank the visionaries from New York and Boston who inspired black business leaders and professionals all across the country to contribute so that hundreds of thousands of young people could see the movie and think about what that kind of sacrifice meant then and means today. As many of you know, some of you maybe, the federal courthouse here in Selma sits just above the Edmund Pettus Bridge. From a window in the courtroom on the 2nd floor, you could just see the bridge. 25 years ago in that courtroom, 3 people from Marion, which is not far from here, in Perry County, named Albert and Evelyn Turner and Spencer Holt, stood charged by the U.S. Justice Department for vote fraud. Their alleged crime, said the Reagan administration, was helping old black people in Perry County use absentee ballots to vote. I was the junior lawyer on that defense team. I remember the Turners and Mr. Holt being old black people, though in fact they would now only be the age I thought they were then. And the scary truth is that I am now the age they actually were. But they had known Jimmy Lee Jackson personally and his family. They were with him the night he was killed in Marion. They remembered the feeling of utter despair and fear and intimidation. And they remembered putting all that aside to march. The witnesses in the trial were mostly people in their 70s and 80s. They had personal memories of how much they risked trying to register to vote, how much they risked just talking about trying to register to vote. They understood what it meant to participate because they remembered what it was like when they couldn't. And so when they learned that an absentee ballot was the way they could exercise their right, even when they couldn't get off from work on time, or in from the field on time, or home from the doctor in the next county on time, they used it. And all those absentee ballots added up to political power. And that's really what this trial was about. The charges were a response to growing black political power. The government knew it. The citizens of Perry County and beyond knew it. And a lot of the folks in this community took that indictment, especially the old folks, like a punch in the gut. They bent over, and in some cases, they cowed. They presumed they had done something wrong because the same people in the same positions of power were sending them the same kind of message about exercising their right to vote that they remembered from the 1940s and 1930s. At first, witnesses wouldn't even talk to us. Some wouldn't open their front doors, told us to get off their front porches and off their land. We don't need no trouble. That's what they'd say. But gradually, we persuaded them to see their right to vote as the treasure it was, that it was under assault, and that voting in person or by absentee ballot and asking for help to do so was not only okay, but something that nobody should try to take away from them again. And one by one, they came out and told us their stories. More importantly, one by one, they told their stories to the jury. And after many weeks of tension and hate mail and the firebombing of the Turner's home in the middle of the trial, the jury returned a verdict acquitting our clients, the Perry County Three, on all counts. They faced down their fears and kept on marching. Why am I telling you this story? First, because I want you to know that I am connected here. Through this trial and through other visits when I worked at the DOJ. But second, because I want you to know that I understand that I am connected here in even deeper ways. Through the legacy of the Turners and Spencer Hogue and J.L. Chestnut and Rose and Hank Sanders. Through John Lewis and Hosea Williams and Martin King and C.T. Vivian. I'm connected here through Jimmy Lee Jackson and Viola Liuzzo and the countless numbers of nameless children and grandmothers and sharecroppers and businessmen and clergy and college students who came here 50 years ago to march. I'm connected here, and so are you. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the way they swallowed their fear and their pride. I'm grateful for the way they held my beloved country to account for the yawning gap between our reality and our ideals and made America better. I'm grateful for the lessons they taught us then and still teach us today of dignified resistance and moral leadership. But I'm grateful most especially today because when they got beat down, they got back up and kept on marching. Their lesson of resilience is the most meaningful to me, and perhaps the most timeless. Just yesterday morning, the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies released a study that concluded, among other things, that blacks were the least advantaged group in America in terms of policy outcomes between 1972 and 2010. Brookings reports that half of black Americans born poor stay poor, and that most middle-class black kids are downwardly mobile. I read somewhere that there are more black men in prison today than there were black men enslaved in the 1800s. Even today, 50 years after enactment of the Voting Rights Act, the Supreme Court has gutted a key enforcement provision, and state after state is moving to make it harder rather than easier to vote. Unarmed Trayvon Martin shot by a neighbor. An unarmed Michael Brown shot by a police officer. And these and too many other cases, no accountability. A grand jury can't see in the videotaped strangling of Eric Gardner what the rest of the world sees. We grieve, we shake our heads in disgust, though not in surprise. And then, most worrisome of all, we renew old questions about whether we have made any progress at all. When we do the latter, we raise those questions, I submit we dishonor the example of the marchers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Remember, when they got beat down, they got back up and kept on marching. Imagine if they hadn't. Imagine if their forebears, our ancestors, had not escaped when they could and called the world's attention to the savagery of human bondage in America. Imagine if the kids in broken schools and broken neighborhoods in the 1930s and 1940s had settled for that and had let their circumstances define their potential and their zip code of birth their destiny. The white men who founded America wrote into our founding documents the values of opportunity, equality, freedom, and fair play, setting in place the aspirations that inspire and challenge all men and women. For those values, our forebears who were beat down got back up and marched. Without that, we would have had no W.E.B. Du Bois, no Booker T. Washington, no Thurgood Marshall, no Martin Luther King, no Barack Obama. We would have had no black lawyers or doctors or inventors or business leaders or teachers or astronauts or community organizers. We would have had no hope and no progress without the resilience of Black America and Black Americans. And as we honor the marches today, let us also honor that. We never seem to be able to talk about race in America without acknowledging both the progress we have achieved and the struggles that remain. It's like we have to choose one or the other. We have haters still, and thousands of those who have overcome their hate and learned to love. We have poverty still, and thousands who have emerged into wealth and opportunity. All are parts of our common reality as a people and as a nation. The key, it seems to me, is to be as mindful and as determined as our forebears to keep on marching, whether we are desperate or comfortable, maybe especially if we are comfortable. That, I think, is the point so beautifully made by my friend Doug Wilder, the former governor of Virginia and the first black governor elected in America. When he said, in introducing me once, he said, being first doesn't mean a thing unless there's a second. Maybe that's why I take an outsized satisfaction from the fact that some folks tried their very best to bully him out of office and the nation re-elected Barack Obama anyway. Resilience, determination. Let's learn to let a setback be just a setback, not a defeat. We learned something from the marches on that bridge 50 years ago about how to keep on marching. And it's a lesson it bears living today. God bless you all. Thank you so much.